What are your thoughts on the statement, if you've seen 1,000 films, you've lived 1,000 lives?
I love filmmaking, and a lot of the reason why I love filmmaking is because I feel like it transports you into these different ways of navigating life and being in different circumstances. And I really feel like film is this sense in which if you've seen 1,000 films, you've lived 1,000 lives.
And does it have to be something that has a quote-unquote message, or can it just be a fun comedy?
A lot of the films that I do seek out to entertain and also provide a message. But there is certainly a side of entertainment in itself that is that uplifts people. You know, Frank Capra very early on made "You Can't Take It With You," and you know, just a number of films that he was nominated for Best Oscar, like time and time again, and they were all message based. Like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And then Preston Sturges came out after that and was like, this is too much. You know, there's something inherently good about just entertainment, that it really lifts people up. And so there's a huge spectrum, and I think all of it's valuable. For me, the really important thing is that entertainment and storytelling has a huge transformative power. And so I really seek to educate and also better understand for myself about what that power is and how it can produce change.
And speaking of Frank Capra, what makes a good life?
What makes a good life? It's such a good question. I mean, I think for everybody, it's something they ask individually or should ask individually. I study philosophy, and the core question with that is, what is a good life? And sort of philosophically speaking, and in philosophy, you explore it through telling stories, which is also why I love philosophy so much. And if the life ends in bliss, then it's a life worth living. If it ends in despair, then it's not. But largely, I've found that if there's a one sort of category, if it's, say, okay to be a hedonist or to be a stoic or to be this or that, that you really can't ever make a mold fit your unique situation. And it's better to kind of consider all these possibilities, and but ultimately to ask yourself what it is that you want and what you want your legacy to be.
Did anyone ever try to talk you out and say, Robert, just go have fun, just get out of your head, like you're young, you should, you seem like you're sort of an old soul, and to be interested in such heady things and such deep things fascinates me.
It's a good question. Multiple times my dad has been like, you need to be having fun. When I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Berkeley and study philosophy, people were like, I don't know if that's great. You already think a lot about things. But for me, that is fun, right? That is the sort of like where meaning comes from. And I've always found that through my work, it's a way of expressing and connecting with the world. And so the more that I work, the more that I engage, the community around me and people around me. So it's always been very, very linked, whether people have been able to see it or not from the outside.
Oh, so you gain energy from these deep thoughts, then it's not depressing.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, it absolutely fires me up, and yeah. There's also too. The great thing about art is it allows you to. The great thing about art is it allows you to express yourself and work through your own things, and so that has been fantastic to explore as well, while also connecting with others. And there's a sort of thing I always tell myself of like turning pain into productivity, sort of taking things and experiences and even if it's just sort of stuck in day-to-day doldrums, and kind of using that to create.
What makes a meaningful story?
I think what makes a meaningful story is one that speaks to what it is to be a human, that is to be alive. And that really, I think it comes down to intent. In any films that I direct and ones that I produce, the central question is always like, what is it that I want to say? And I feel like you can have entertainment, but even the entertaining films that don't ask themselves, what is it I want to say with this film, sort of have a bit of a quick shelf life. And so for me, it comes down to the intent and the narrative drive and the sort of meaningful message that you put into a particular work.
How is a horror movie meaningful?
Horror is such a phenomenal genre because it elicits such a strong reaction and it pulls you so much out of your head to literally be there on screen and to connect with other people in an audience. And there is this amazing way, science fiction is often talked about this, as you can create these metaphors, and you know, this whole series was actually about one thing when we thought it was just entertainment on its core. And horror film, I feel, is the exact same way. And it struck me when I was first watching The Blob. And you know, The Blob is coming and everybody's yelling, you know, the blob is coming, and people are partying and kind of ignoring it. And you realize that, oh, this is about the Red Scare. This is about what happens if communism comes and takes over. Are people just going to ignore it and this blob is going to go and absorb everything in its path? And that and other films, other horror films like that, really opened my eyes to, wow, this art form and this genre can actually engage on a much deeper level, even if it's as a joke, you know, even if it's just kind of tongue-in-cheek, but that there's a lot more here in this genre to explore.
How has philosophy impacted your film career?
Philosophy has impacted my film career in that it's gotten me to fall in love again with filmmaking. I think for anybody alive, they look around and they see all these problems in the world, and it's hard to realize you're escaping it, and it's hard to fall into your series, fall into your shows, and still see all of these things out there. And realizing that my love of filmmaking can engage on these issues, elevate these topics, or even just give a little bit of, you know, life to other people in what they watch, or get them to consider things in different ways, really brought me back to filmmaking. That it wasn't just popcorn, that it was it really had a very strong value. And you know, they've often said, without science, you know, there would be no life. And I think it's true of art. You know, without art, there wouldn't be, you know, life wouldn't be as glorious as it is.
Was there a school of thought or a certain type of, you know, like philosophical principle that you take with you when you go on set?
I would say the largest philosophical influences on me are mainly Heideggerian, which basically says that we are not separate from the world. You cannot define yourself as, I am here and the world is there. That we are all, and it's so prevalent that Heidegger even tries to reinterpret our whole understanding of being as amidst the world. So to say, I'm in the world, like that doesn't even make sense. We are all amidst the world. And filmmaking is such to coin a Hannah Arendt term, is such action in concert, so many people coming together, that for me, it's also a recognition of that extreme vulnerability. If somebody doesn't want to come to set, if somebody's forgotten something, if a location isn't available, all these things are this action in concert and put us in this extremely vulnerable place to produce something that on paper at some point could feel impossible, and that we're all able to do it together by leaning in, by depending on one another, and then to at the end have this thing that we get to go and eat popcorn and celebrate together at a premiere.
And sorry, what was the principle called again?
So it's basically his entire philosophy. It's basically his theory of being. And so he doesn't really have like a specific kind of school of thought that speaks to it, but
Sure.
but largely people who think like that are call themselves like Heideggerians, or it's also taken up by another philosopher, Merleau-Ponty. And then the person that I studied closest with who did this, his name was Bert Dreyfus.
So and forgive me, I'm rusty on my philosophy, but like Ayn Rand, she was more
Sure.
about like rugged individualism.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this is the opposite.
So it's not so much about a lack of individualism, it's more about how you look at yourself in relation to the world. And so it's where Stoics say you are to be completely detached and to shut down, or even Buddhists, right, that say, I'm a quantumist, things change, but I am going to maintain my sense of peace and well-being. This is throw yourself into things, throw yourself into commitments, that basically the best life is to be completely committed to a work or to people, and that is what, as Kierkegaard puts it, it sort of entwines itself around every ligament of your consciousness, and gives you a world and gives you meaning.